concern growing over the future supply of rare metals. Experts are calling for tougher rules on their recycling. So let's go to London, speak to Federico Magalini, who is the managing director of Sofies. It's an organization that offers solutions for industrial ecosystems. Federico, thank you so much for your time. I mean, people have been hearing more and more about rare metals over the years because so much of it comes from China. It becomes a political issue as well. Tell us about rare metals and why they're not being recycled. Is it difficult or what?
There are two main reasons. The first one is that most of them are technically recyclable, but they are in very small concentration in the products, and at the moment the majority of the legislation are not focusing on the recovery of tiny part in those metals, but on the great majority of base metals. So there is not a legal requirement to recover them, and for some of them, especially those different from platinum group metals, I'm talking about rare earth in particular, the economic incentive is not there. The market dynamics are not providing enough incentive for recycling processes to happen for those metals, but we run the risk of dissipating and losing them for the future.
Well, you know, the politics that I mentioned, because people have been saying that China could use its supply of rare metals as a tool to get its own way in whatever discussion or negotiation it's having with another country. So why aren't other nations thinking, if we can recycle these and use them again, it could reduce our reliance on China? There's a big debate going on in the Western alliance led by the US about how we can do that and try to rely less on what happens with China.
And that's exactly the point, and that's exactly why in this project we designed a standard to make sure once products containing critical raw materials and rare metals are discarded, they go through a process that is ensuring those metals that are strategic for us are kept in the loop. Because we already made the effort of mining them once, and it's much more convenient to keep them in the loop. The problem is that, as I said earlier, most of the times in recycling processes, we ignore or we neglect their presence, and then we are losing them. And that's exactly why we need to have a mandatory standard to make sure once the products containing rare metals is reaching the end of life, we make sure that's going through a process that is recovering and preserving that metals in the economy.
Is there any alternative, or is there some advance in finding an alternative to rare metals?
I don't think it's a matter of finding an alternative. I would say engineers already found how to use the chemical property of those elements. Of course, you might have substitutions coming up, but I don't expect the potential elements that we can use in the future to have different patterns. The chemical properties of those elements are the reason why we are use cerium, dysprosium, ruthenium, tantalum, and so on. And even if we find an alternative, the alternative will not be a base metal like copper or like aluminium. So we will always have an issue with the scarcity of metals that are used in very tiny and little quantities.
Yeah, I was actually hoping you would mention some of the names of those rare metals. I mean, they've got such exotic sounding names. Federico, thank you so much indeed. Federico Magalini speaking to us from London.